And you've been around for how long? How long have you guys been around? Since like 16 or 17, right?
20 late 2016, early 2017. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking as well. And you work with Marshall and Taylor.
Marshall and Taylor, and you spoke a different language that we thought was impossible at the time. We thought you were talking about parting the Red Sea. And I think me in particular, I challenged you and Marshall at every opportunity. And I find it really ironic that the proof's in the results. I'm your biggest fan now.
Beautiful. I love to hear that. And is Jamie with us too, Ken?
Yeah, good afternoon.
Awesome. There he is. Jamie, IPS Solar. Now you're a little newer. You started in 2020, is that correct?
That is correct. It's been about 15 months now, but we've been going up the learning curve very quickly.
Awesome. So a little bit of different perspective, not quite 7 years, not quite 5, but right there in the middle with 1 or so. I'll get it kicked off with any questions, and then please make sure anybody in this entire group, you have a question about anything, stick it in chat, and we'll bounce it over to these guys as quickly as possible. I've got these written down, so I'll just read them. We know change is hard at first, and Ben, you've heard this before, messy in the middle and beautiful in the end. What was the most surprisingly difficult thing that you and your team broke through to get to that beautiful side while implementing the habits inside of the Petra process? So I'm looking for surprise, like, oh, we can do that. And it's like surprisingly difficult, and you broke through it. Let's see, Bill, I'll start with you.
I'll take the very first one. Telling me that I could get 26 people in a huddle and have them do a productive huddle every single day of the week and do it in 15 minutes or less. Like I said, I thought that was going to be walking on water, and the value of that exercise of practice and doing it every single day. And if you can't attend, that you read a line, you update and look through a line. That practice has brought the entire leadership team a visibility of the business that when they didn't have before. And I think everybody didn't really realize the value of seeing every other part of the business. And for those who aren't on the call, we have 10 offices around North America and a little over 500 people, and in 4 time zones, and trying to keep that leadership team aligned and focused on the right critical numbers. It was the secret sauce. But we stood in the huddle, everyone, on the very first time, and Andy said, we're going to do this. And I openly laughed. And I said, all right, great. So Andy gets us all in a circle, pulls out a stopwatch, and starts timing us. And we get to about the 3rd person, we did it wrong. And we practiced for about 20 minutes. And we had it. And I thought, really, this 20-minute thing is going to make this monumental difference to my business? And now, all these years later, I think of I said this on a leadership meeting globally, because all of our teams in the company use the huddle concept and use Align, that it's the one thing I do, that if I do nothing in a day, even on vacation, I go to Align and I look at the huddle and look at the updates, and it gives it to me right there.
Perfect. And I think the comments that, there's a lot of people on this call, some of them haven't even begun working with us yet. They've got kickoffs coming up in a few weeks, and then some of them are pretty new. So they're struggling with what you kind of struggled with already. So it gives good context to know that there is hope, right? So hey, Coco, good to see you.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hey, Ben and Jamie, did you run through the same thing when you started the huddle process? Did you look at it and think, oh, that's going to be easy, we'll just bang that out and get it done? Or did you look at it saying, yeah, sure, right?
Jamie?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it really was, it was a bit of a struggle, but people got on board pretty quickly, and really very quickly, we built alignment and camaraderie as we were setting goals and then working through that process. Everybody knows and can see what everybody else is doing. And there's a lot of trust that gets built through that process, actually. And when everybody sees, and you can see the accountability as you go down the road, and then you can all share the success together. So really, that was what I was going to answer. And I think it's been one of the best things that has come out of our participation in Petra. Ben?
Yeah, same thing. So the daily huddle, but the meeting rhythms all together has been what's made the biggest difference. Jamie, like you, we had buy-in from the team from the beginning. It was something that people were tired of being frustrated with not knowing what everybody else had going on and what was happening, and so implementing the daily meeting rhythms, but also the 2-weekers, the quarterly planning sessions, the annual retreat, having something to look forward to, and knowing kind of what that rhythm is going to look like and what it's going to bring. But with the addition of the implementation of a line and being able to track those priorities. So the biggest surprise for me, and I think for most of our team, was that we didn't have to focus on 15 or 18 things every quarter or all the time in order to be successful. We could actually narrow that down and get aligned with, no pun intended, but get aligned with the top 3 to 5 things that really needed to be addressed in the next 90 days for us to be successful. And it took us to another level of success by focusing on those priorities and being able to communicate them in daily huddles and meeting rhythms.
And Ben's nickname is Chief. That's why he has that Chief picture behind him. So he's carrying the tradition forward. And Coco Champagne has joined us. She is with Haggerty up in Traverse City. We had a lot of your team members were with us today at the Ascent event, Coco. And you've been around me for about 3.5, maybe even close to 4 years at this point.
Yeah.
And the question that I asked was, change is messy and hard. And then we know on the other side of it, it gets beautiful. Was there anything that was like surprisingly difficult where we went into the process with, hey, this is not going to be all that hard, and it became like, oh, this is harder than I thought it was going to be? And for context, there's about 100 people on the call, and some of them haven't even started like kicking off yet, and they're just scared to death. And some of them are 6 months in, maybe a year in, and they're wanting more, and the time it takes to kind of get these things going. Talk a little bit about that if you don't mind.
Yeah. Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's nice to see you all. Thanks for inviting me, Andy. I would say, 2 things to me that really stood out. The first is we have an appetite to try to do more projects than we can have the capacity to execute. So I think that forced discipline that we would have to really recognize what are truly the essential key things that need to be done, and how to be very, very clear about what that end state needs to be. Today, after working with Andy for 3.5 years, at times we still struggle with those same issues. I mean, I think that's part of a growth business. There's a desire to do more, but we're certainly doing a better job at being clear about what the end state needs to look like, and doing a better job by ensuring that we're not overloading any specific group. I think that it was hard to imagine that we'd be cutting out the time to dedicate for purposes of communications around those specific groups and to funnel information up and down across the organization. But we stayed really true to our habits with that, and just continue to just follow that cadence and recognition of that we would get there. So I kind of likened it to, starting a new workout regime, or maybe starting to try to do a push-up. Your first few that you're working through, your form isn't good and you're not getting there, but over time, you build the strength and you build, that muscle memory of what that needs to be. But I think the big key for me is, communication to our teams, and probably an unexpected key to me was engagement, and allowing our teams to understand not only where the company is going, but where they could see themselves in our growth journey.
Yeah, and I remember we were doing, before we all went home and had to do stuff virtually. I mean, we had planning days that had like 100 people in it. We've segmented that because of virtual and being able to get in person. It's still a little bit crazy up there in Michigan. Yeah. But if you do a planning day with 100 people, they're pretty aligned. They know what's going on inside the organization.
Yeah. I think that you have to be willing to evolve, evolve how you're looking at it, depending on what your strategy is asking for you to execute on.
The other thing that I know, and I know in this group is really true, it's also true in Coco's team. The CEO has a commitment level of this is what we're going to do. And there's no wavering from that.
Right.
Like we're going to figure this out,
Yeah.
and it's going to be hard, and we're going to get there together. So get on board, or as Ben would say, get in the boat, because it's just the way that it's going to be.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of commitment to this is the way we're going to operate moving forward. It's going to be messy, but we're going to get there together.
Yeah.
That's very important.
Yeah, I think the quarterly discipline and having that coming from the top, and the fact that our CEO is carving out the time to be dedicated to this practice, then the rest of his team are dedicated to the practice. And I think our direct reports then see us dedicated to it. So it really, it sounds so cliche to say it starts from the top, but if he wasn't as dedicated and demanding the execution excellence, then it would be easier to let it go. But because of his expectations and the requirement to execute with a sense of excellence, this has to continue, because without a plan, it's not going to work.
Okay, Ben, you had something to add?
Yeah, I was going to throw in there. I didn't answer originally what was surprisingly difficult, and Coco brought up a good point. We've got almost 20 members of our leadership team, and I didn't realize how difficult it was going to be to manage that many different personalities and personality profiles in order to get them bought in. So, to your point, somebody, you can ask the questions and you can get alignment from the team. But at some point, somebody's got to make the decision and draw the line in the sand and say, this is what we're going to do for the next 90 days. And we do that every quarterly planning session. We ask the question, does anybody got any recommendations to improve on our meeting rhythms, our daily huddles, and we make changes. Quarterly. There's some quarters that we say, let's do something different and make changes. And just like this quarter, we actually reverted back to what we were doing a previous quarter, because what we did last quarter didn't seem to be working, and it didn't feel like it was getting the information out like it should. So we reverted back and made the decision to go back to what we had been previously doing. But somebody's got to make the decision. If you can't come to an agreement with everybody, somebody's got to make the decision and draw the line in the sand and stick to it. That was probably the hardest part. After everybody's on the honeymoon the first week or two of the huddle, but sticking to it when you're a month, 2 months, 6 months in to that rhythm, and making sure that you stick with it. Because if you do over the period of time, 2, 3, 4 years, we're 7 years in now, we can see the benefits of it.
Ben, you talk about that muscle memory of we ran into that last April. Overnight, we're a company of 507 people in North America. We spend $2 million a quarter on travel to get out in front of our customers consulting. And overnight, we took 500, literally from a Thursday to a Monday, and took 507 people and said, you're now going to no longer work in an office, and you're no longer going to travel. And the board immediately said, how are you going to communicate with all these people? How are you going to make sure they're all doing the right thing? I said, oh, we did that 2 years ago. And they said, no, really? And I said, it'll be fine. And we didn't miss a beat. We were able to, through the meeting cadences, because our entire company uses the Petra process, and every team does huddles. Every team has weeklies, monthlies, 2-weekers, and everything. Just the muscle memory was there, and it enabled us to. When our competition was laying people off last year, we were hiring and we were exceeding our goals. Quite frankly, because we had the muscle memory and the tools to operate that I didn't realize the importance of until 2020 started to evolve, and you realize, oh my gosh, we had this muscle memory the whole time. It was helping us succeed, but now you see it is really it was one of the foundational elements that enabled our success last year. Without it, I have no doubt that we wouldn't have been successful.
We've heard that quite a bit from companies, especially ones that got started, a year or 2 years prior to March 13th, 2020, right? That this is what kind of carried them through, just kind of having that baseline and foundation. And Ben, I want to go back to your comment because a lot of people on here are fairly new in the process, and some of them just heard, hey, tweak and change the meeting rhythms to suit your particular needs. Don't go do that right away. Like, you need to lay the foundation of the way that it's designed and then begin to figure out what works for you. When you start a personal training regiment, they're going to give you form, right? All that baseline has to be laid before you can start, jumping off tall buildings and testing, your flight suit on the way down. Jamie, anything to add there?
For us, when the work from home started up, a lot of our culture was forsaken. We're a solar developer up in St. Paul, and some of the best moments that we had was when somebody would close a deal and they would go and ring the bell, and the whole office would stop what they would be doing and go, congratulate. There might literally be a dance or a song, and that all just kind of disappeared overnight. But with the daily huddles, it gave us such a sense of grounding. And every day, 2:32 is a sacred time when you carve that out to be in that huddle. And it really, it's come to the point now where we can kind of capture some of that that we lost, because we have fun and we'll just goof around with each other for a minute or so and, crack jokes or, pick on people. I mean, it all in a fun way, not mean, we're not hazing or anything, but it just really turns into this really sacred place where we can come together and work on stuff together and all achieve our goals together. So it really is just that structure upon which we have built a lot of our success over the last year and a half.
So hey Coco, how did you guys develop? This is Bill. Did you do with the assigning critical numbers and running the business by the critical numbers? Was that easy for you guys or hard?
I don't think that's ever easy for anybody. And with the changes in the landscape that we went through, I agree with, Ben and Jamie in the comments around having the access to this discipline. Some of the people on our team were like, oh my gosh, thank God we've got Zoom. Thank God we've got Slack. Thank God we've got these digital tools that help us enable our communication. And I said, thank God we have what we describe as our Haggerty rhythm in place, because yes, we have the tools, but now we also have everything in place to be able to to have the right kind of conversations that we need to have on a regular basis. Predicting targets to some extent, especially as we got into April and May, and the variability of, inbound call volume, and that had changed. But we were very fortunate that our business really did exceed our growth targets. But it wasn't easy, but I do believe that that discipline of staying on top of where we are from a performance perspective and being able to make some pivots really helped us make a difference.
And for us, prior to Petra, we would get on a weekly call, and this guy from accounting would read the numbers to everybody, and everybody would kind of wonder how the heck those numbers happened. And if you ask somebody a question about, why is your number down or up, or why is a leading indicator or a trailing indicator not accurate, they'd say, well, I'll get back to you. And now years later, that person who read the numbers is no longer even on the call, and everybody owns and has evolved their numbers. And for us, that digestion of the business, we're no longer riding the business, we're actually driving the business to where we want to go. And that really in there changed. And I think those meeting cadences and the critical numbers for us was really helpful. And then quite frankly, I think it was that combination plus Marshall knew where we needed to be, because he had already been there once before or twice before or many times before. And he knew that often I would call Marshall and say, Marshall, I see this quarter happening, but what's next quarter or the quarter after that? I just need to get my mind wrapped around it, because I see this evolving. And he can always lead me to say, all right, well, yeah, you're getting there, but here's the next thing you need to get your arms around. And that continual improvement and evolution isn't just me as the CEO, it's the entire team. And we went from me standing in the front of the room telling everyone, here's the numbers, here's where the business is going to. Quite frankly, I'm pretty quiet. Our last planning session, I hardly said anything. The entire team owned all the critical numbers in the business.
I think that's true of most organizations that stick to this methodology for a length of time. A couple things happen. Ownership beyond just the C-level happens, and predictability begins to happen. Like you get much better at predicting where you're going to go and actually achieving that. Marshall, he's been talking about you. I know you've got something to say, and then I'm going to come back to Jamie and unpack something that he said.
Yeah, I wanted to bring this up because the timeliness of it was impeccable, and then also a learning moment for new members embarking upon this journey or current members who have been on it for quite some time. This is a real story, and this regards, if you think about whether it's Coco at Haggerty, whether it's Ben at Southeastern, where it's Bill at Kerber, or whether it's Jamie at the solar company. And success is not an accident. And the commitment to this process, when we want to make everything complicated, is nothing more than, winners don't just accidentally succeed. And Bill, you're very humble in your comments, but I dare say that you do the work, and I just stand behind you and sometimes hand you lemonade and applaud you. But I want you to listen to this real email. This is to the team, well into the journey. Hi, team. I appreciate that all of you attend the morning huddle. And for those of you that do it every Monday through Friday, please disregard this email. It seems the morning huddle is thought as an optional event. That's not the case. So I want to be clear so there's no confusion. You're expected to come to work every day. You're expected to come to huddle every day. This is part of how we run our business. And you should not schedule anything on top of the huddle. You don't have to. Unless the following 4 reasons to not attend the huddle apply, we expect that you'll be there. Death, or possibly imminent death, or any other event regarding 911. Paid time off, on a plane, or with a customer. P.S. We all look forward to having the team back on huddle calls each and every day. So when all of you say, I don't know why I can't get my team to do this, you step forward with courage and leadership, and you deliver the information. This is how we're going to run our business. Haggerty does it this way. Kerber does it this way. Southeastern does it this way. And it's IPS Solar. I'm sorry. But again, I just wanted to share that because success doesn't accidentally happen. And the mindset of a champion, which those 4 CEOs are, that's why their companies perform every day. So for those of you about ready to come on board, stay committed to the process and the rest takes care of itself.
Thank you, man.
Thanks, Marshall.
Jamie, I wanted to come back to something that you said your huddle was at 2:33 in the afternoon. Is that accurate?
2:32. Come on, get it right now.
Right. I was off by a minute. 2:32. I would have been late to the huddle, and then I would have got an email from Bill Ryan. So here's what the question popped into the chat around the decision to do it in the afternoon versus the decision to do it in the morning. Can you kind of unpack that a little bit? Why do you do it in the afternoon?
Oh, I didn't say it's in the afternoon. It's 2:32 in the morning.
No.
No,
I like that. That's discipline.
honestly, a lot of our inner team meetings were already in the morning, and we wanted a time which everybody could commit to. So I know a lot of people do it first thing, but since other people were planning their sales meetings or their ops meetings at that time, just for us, that was great because it was right in the middle of the afternoon. People weren't commuting, they weren't meeting with customers later in the day. And honestly, we have, I won't say 100% attendance all the time, but it pretty much meets those 4 criteria that Marshall laid out. And people are updating the line or attending pretty much every day. The buy-in is pretty total. And there is FOMO, right? You want to be at that huddle in case, something's said. So it's an event that people want to come to.
Well, it just goes to show you that the timing of it is not nearly as important as making sure that the content is relevant, that people are going to miss out, that you do a good job with it and you're committed to it. You can kind of do these whenever you want to, and in whatever cadence makes the most sense to work around the business itself. So I just wanted to unpack that just a little bit. Do you go over the day thus far? I'm focused on the next day already. So Sarah's asking, and anybody can answer this if you want to jump in. So I think this is a huddle question. Do you go over the day thus far? This would be you, Jamie, in the afternoon. or do you focus on the next day already? So that gap between, because it's in the afternoon.
Yes. So basically the first part is stuff you need to know. It's bringing the team up to speed on things that they need to know. That's very important, because if it's just you don't need to waste everybody's time. And then it's usually just like the top priority for the next day. So we do both, and sometimes it bleeds through, which is a challenge for that if you have a meeting later in the afternoon. But we do both.
Awesome. I wanted to jump off of kind of implementation, Petra process, Rockefeller habit stuff, and ask a question around what you've learned in the last year. So, I think I'm just going to read it. We're entering into return to better phase of this pandemic. We're entering into the return to better phase of the pandemic. What was the biggest learning from this past year that you feel you need to ensure you keep alive as part of this returning to better? So it may take you a second to think about this. But we all learned something in the last year, something we never would have learned without, I'll call it a gift of the pandemic. And we want to make damn sure that going forward, we don't lose that learning. So I'd love to hear from you guys. What did you learn in the last year going through this experience that you want to make sure you keep alive going forward? So whenever anybody's ready, just give me maybe a hands up, and I'll start with whoever wants to start. Coco, you want to go first?
Sure. It's a great question. I think I would say I'd kind of categorize it in new things that we learned, and it's sort of an old thing in a way, but it's a new emphasis on it. Is as we went from having 1,300 employees at that time, really more headquarter focused, as everybody went to be dispersed, we recognized that the part of communication had to be something that we doubled down on. And not just pushing out information to our employees so they could feel a sense of connectivity and also knowing where the business is going, but it also had to be incorporated with a very strong emphasis on listening. So we were very dedicated to creating opportunities to really make sure we are hearing from our employees about what was working and what wasn't working. And that's consistent with what our culture has been in the past. Also, we have 3 times a year where we survey our employee group and get information from them as it relates to, Gallup engagement or Great Places to Work Trust Index. And we take that data and it helps inform our programming going forward. But this was something quite different. This was focusing on listening, not only to ensure that they were being engaged, but understand the struggles that they were having because of the concerns that they had just environmentally with the concerns that they had. And then also because we had a lot of social impact issues that were happening. And then just also the ability to execute on their tasks. So communicating out with very intentional messaging so people felt connected, but then also listening to our employees. And I think the one thing that we'll never turn back on is just the fact that now that we've opened up and are recruiting and really working in a very dispersed manner, I don't think we'll go back to a focus of headquarter focused or physical office focused. And that's allowed us to open up a whole realm of talent. And so our talent acquisition processes are really have really opened up for us.
You hired and onboarded 350 people in a quarter?
Yep. No, for the last 3 months of 2020.
Last 3 months, yeah. Last 3 months of 2020, 350 new people started with Hagerty. That's a lot of people coming in the door.
Yeah.
And as these guys are talking, like the greatest lesson would be to learn the lessons of others. So they're talking about, this is what I learned. It's like, take this and implement it in your own life. Mm-hmm. Who would like to follow Coco? I know that's a tough spot. Ben?
To go right along with Coco there, I think we all realized, and Bill, you mentioned it earlier, that you could grow and succeed in business without being on an airplane or being on the road, building type A office space, and having somewhere to sit, that you can survive with a laptop computer and a ring light and a camera, and actually move the business forward. We grew at about 28% last year, year over year, and had the best first quarter this year that we've had. And we've been able to cut some significant expenses that we would have probably never addressed or looked at if it had not been for the pandemic. So, being able to pivot and being ahead of the curve, I think the Rockefeller habits and the Align software and the Petra coaching all together put us in a great position foundationally to be able to handle this. I can't fathom to think where we would have been and what we would have done without having that in place. So grateful for all of those things being in place and us leading the business with leading indicators as opposed to lagging indicators, and being able to see what's coming around the curve and being able to pivot, on the front end as opposed to after it's too late.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. Bill, Jamie, you want to arm wrestle?
Go ahead, Bill.
All right. For me, it was, and for our business in particular, was really keeping alive that culture of appreciation, that recognition, reward. While we had it, I don't think that it was fully embraced by the entire business and seen until last year. And I measure that in a couple of ways. One, through the weekly huddles, we have a moment where we have employee feedback, and the amount of employee feedback and engagement from all of the leadership team really jumped up. Their awareness of what everybody was doing and how they were contributing seemed to increase disproportionately to being in an office. The further we got away from an office, the more that the employee feedback increased. The more I saw emails, and I use these. These are my little candy that I keep around. I keep these just letters and handwritten notes of appreciation that, Andy, it started with you standing up in front of, 2016, and really, I guess I would say, creating an intentionality to do something that some of us did but didn't understand the intention, to having that saturate the business at every level. And I see people, I was walking around one of our empty offices through COVID, and it was like a little bit of a ghost town, 100 and some people in an office, but nobody there. And I start walking around, and what jumped out at me was on people's desks were these cards. And I thought to myself, I wonder. So I went and I started grabbing them off of people's desks, putting them in envelopes. And I spent an afternoon, and then I went and sent them to the people that was on their desks. And I was shocked at how important it was to people. They're like, hey, that was awesome. That was really great. You sent those. But that culture of appreciation, as we get back to normal, I don't want us to forget. I don't want us to ever get distracted from that again, because I see it being a really healthy driver to who we are. And I think the camaraderie and whatever the new normal brings, I need to make sure that we keep this culture of appreciation.
And being intentional about it.
And being intentional, absolutely. So one of the things Taylor Brown was helping us with after our last planning session was, we're now creating in our weekly huddle, not only who the employee standouts were, but we're tracking who did you send something to, so that everybody else can see it, because I might not have seen that Jamie did something or recognized it, but I want the rest of the leaders to. And so now other people are kind of piggybacking on top of it, so that we can really make sure that everyone is able to contribute in that aspect, and make sure we know who are these people that are in their home, a little disconnected possibly because they're not in an office. We don't want that to go unseen.
So we have listening is an important part of communication. The ability to work pretty much from anywhere, like we can get this done, and we don't need all the stuff that we had before to get it done, and being intentional with a culture of appreciation. Jamie, what can you add to that?
Yeah, so two things, just to kind of emphasize what Ben was talking about. For me, it's the best laid plans of mice and men, right? So it's great to have a plan. It's better to execute it, and it's the best if you can pivot where needed and change as you're going along. And, secondly, I think our core values become more and more important, in the fact that we live them out every day is just vital. Our retention in our company was 100% last year, and over the last 5 years has been like 98%. And that's because we really do walk the talk. When I tell you that here at our company, we make a mudslide shine, everybody here knows what that means.
Tell us more.
Oh, no, that's, you got to be part of the company to get it.
Make a mudslide shine.
That is correct.
Awesome. We'll have to get that and share it out with everybody, since you just piqued everybody's curiosity for sure. All right. So if you got questions, pop them into chat. I'm going to ask you one more thing, and then we'll start wrapping up the Ascent event.
Hey, Andy, can I jump in real quick to something Bill was talking about? I think it's important to be strategic and about that gratitude and being able to recognize and reward those team members. I think what I've struggled with or seen the most difficulty with is leaders were so busy and tied into other things that, Coco talked about listening and how critical that is. But becoming a better listener, but also becoming a better actor. I know we're just coming off the Oscars here, but acting on, when you see an opportunity to make a difference, in a team member's life, whether it's big or small, whatever it is. And, I have a uncanny ability, I guess, to listen for those small things. But beyond that, I take those and I put something into action, pretty quick, whether it's myself or my assistant or somebody else. I have to do something about it then, because if I don't do something about it then, one, I likely won't get it. I won't do it. And two, it won't have the impact that it would, if you did it immediately. So, it's listening and doing the little things that, you don't even recognize, but asking the right questions and knowing your people well enough to be able to make that difference, in their lives.
Ben, I've told this story 100 times, maybe more, and you're the only person I've ever seen actually go through and do this. If you've been with Petra for any length of time, you get a survey, the Outstanding Player Survey, you read through it every quarter. Ben, all on his own, takes that survey and he calls every single person that's mentioned in that survey himself personally. It takes him a couple of weeks to do it while he's driving around Georgia. And he just talks to them about what was said in that survey. He's been doing that for 6 years, every single quarter. That's what he's talking about, being very, very intentional with it. So just a good best practice.
Like you said, Ben, it got us thinking internally of the little things that we could do that we weren't. A little over a year ago, I started writing handwritten notes to every new employee that thanked them for coming and choosing to honor us with their time, and explain to them our core values, and try to schedule a little bit of time, half an hour with them. And when, it takes a commitment, a lot of time to do that. Those the handwritten notes of appreciation, my family has just learned Saturday mornings, I sit at the kitchen table while I eat breakfast. I get up before everybody and I write notes of appreciation every Saturday. And not only does it help the culture and the employee, it really, my commitment to learning what those things are has gotten me a depth of knowledge in the business that I didn't have before, which it helps. So I would say whatever little thing you're doing, like Jamie, like you're saying, you're going to take that list of outstanding players and call them, or however you choose to implement it, create that environment and stick to it. And at first, people might be a little gun shy. They might think it's contrived. They might think it's a little different, but eventually it becomes what everybody just knows, and it gets really contagious.
Hey, Andy, I got a story from a planning session last week, and I'm not going to tell it because it's not mine to tell, but I'll ask Emily to tell it because we got her choked up in the planning session. But Marshall asked a question early on in the day, and this is a new business, and I didn't know this person very well. But Marshall asked a question to this person who is real reserved and laid back, and Marshall asked the question about, what is your dream? What's your dream in life? Emily, I'm gonna let you take it from there.
Yeah, thank you. So this this woman answered and said her dream was to just race a fast car. That was it. Nothing in particular, just get in a car and go fast. And that's what she wanted. That was her dream. So the planning day goes on. I'm going to the kitchen to grab a water, and Ben is sitting next to Deborah. They work really closely together. And on Deborah's computer, I can see like something that looks like a racetrack. And I thought, that's really odd. We talked about that this morning, but I'm not sure why she's looking that up in the planning session. So later on, the end of the day comes, and Ben turns to her and says, what was that one thing that you said this morning that it's your dream, you've always wanted to do? She said, well, I mean, to drive a car fast, drive a racetrack, drive the car. And Ben presented this woman a certificate, not only for her to go to the racetrack in Atlanta and drive a car, but also for her team that surrounds her direct team to go with her. And I choked up. I may have shed a couple tears. This Petra team knows that I love me a good cry, but it was just the simple act. In the 2 years that I've been here at Petra, I've never seen someone do that. It took Ben 10 minutes to put together, but it made this woman's day and probably this woman's year. And I could guarantee that maybe no one has done something as special for her as Ben did. So it was really impactful.
That's awesome, Ben. I think this really does give you, the Petra process gives us the forum to learn those things. It gives people the place where they can feel safe to be vulnerable and to share. And through that safety and vulnerability, we gain intimacy and we gain a strength and trust to be able to carry into, hey, businesses don't always work perfect. But if I can trust you here with this personal thing, I can really trust you with the business and with the growth. So it makes it really easy that, look, bad news doesn't get better with age. It makes an environment where people are able to bring that quickly and realize, look, that's just a little thing. We're all much closer than that. And you just reinforced that, which is really awesome, Ben.
I love the bad news does not get better with age. That may be the quote of the day, Bill Ryan. All right, so here's the final question. You got a lot of people on this call. Some of them are just kind of getting started. Some of them are like, this is really difficult. What's the piece of advice that you would give someone that's going through what you guys have been through already? Jamie, you're 18 months in or so. What piece of advice would you say, really think about and make sure this is what you do? Ben, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll be glad to. I think it's stick to the process. Buy in to the process. Petra Coach does a phenomenal job. We got a phenomenal tool in the Align software. But lead from your seat and get your team bought in, but stick to the process. Even through the tough times, when you're thinking it may not be working, work with your coach, work with your accountability coach, and stick through the process. I think the biggest advice I can give to anybody that's either just joined in or have not joined yet, because it's proven, and Marshall said it last week in the meeting, put me in any business. I mean, we're in 4 different businesses here on this panel, and it's not the business. I tell people all day long, I can sell my business, and I can open up a hot dog or a cotton candy stand or a water park or whatever I want to do. And if I put the process in place, it's going to be successful. You find the right people and put the process in place, but you got to stick to it and lead by example, lead from the top.
All right, so stick to the process. Who wants to follow? Jamie, you want to go next?
Ben said it great. You could spend a lot of energy building and inventing the process, but it's already here. So stick to it, keep working it, work the process, work the plan, and it will end up paying rewards. And you're just gonna get benefits out of it that are unexpected. And that teamwork piece and the trust, as Bill alluded to before, is just an unexpected benefit, and it's going to work. If you work it, it will work for you.
Beautiful. So process, stick to it. Don't give up. Coco, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say, I think about this a lot as a habit. and it's just like being really intentional, and it's a commitment to seeing something through. And so just think about this to me as just like building a habit, just like getting up in the morning and working out or whatever you're going to be intentional about. And the payoff for that is that it does allow you to make better decisions. You're not trying to track all these different things and track progress and using your energy for something like that. You're able to use your mind on the essential things that only you can focus on. So that increases your decision making and your discernment and your judgment, because this process is taking care of that piece of the other, tracking and, scheduling things, because it's already done for you. So build the habit. It allows you to make better decisions.
That's good. Really good. Insightful. Bill?
Absolutely. Well, I have to share that in this, I would say, trust first. Trust the process, trust your coach, trust that this will work, and do the work. And Marshall probably has scars from me not trusting and thinking that this was for everybody else in the business, that as an entrepreneur and a CEO, I didn't need this, that this was for everyone else. And I will stand in front of you and testify that in hindsight, I still think now that I got the most out of this process, that me personally, this was the single best thing that's happened in my life. That when I think of personal and career development, that trusting the process and doing the work. I spent 6 months to a year bucking the process, trying to be the anarchist in this, and Andy and Marshall kept pushing. And one simple thing, when I didn't trust the process and I didn't do the work, I had Groundhog Day. The urgent always popped up versus the important. And all I was doing was the same thing over and over again, saying to myself, why can't these people keep up? Why can't, when it was me? And the moment that I trusted Marshall and Taylor and Andy, and I did the work, trusted the process, did the work, slowly the urgent wasn't so urgent, and I had time to work on the important. And that it gave us a strategic advantage, which was evident in COVID. Suddenly you had to have time as a business to work on the important, and you had it. You had all the muscle memory and the skills and the meeting cadences and the leading indicators to enable you to achieve success. So the sooner you trust and the sooner you do work, the sooner there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not a train, it's sunlight, and it is warm and it's glowing, and it makes life really good. I recently talked to Marshall a couple weeks ago. I was on vacation, and I remember a time when I couldn't take vacations, or if I was on vacation, my family was vacationing and I was working. And now I'm able to take vacations. The business works, the business grows. You got to trust, and you got to do the work, though.
Yeah, and it takes time.
Takes time and a commitment. I like Coco's description of intentionality in the habit. It has to be.
So we at Petra work mostly in North America, so all over US and Canada. And then we have our office in London that kind of covers Western Europe. But we do have, and we have a member with us today from Pakistan. So Shahid is here. It is 1 o'clock in the morning where he is. And he's got a question that he wants to ask the panel.
I don't really have a question, but it's more like a follow up on the conversation which Bill and Ben and Jamie were doing. So I think the first thing is it is not just the coach's responsibility to build a relation with you. It is just as important as your job to build that relation, and it's a two-way stream. That is extremely important element. Like for instance, and I'm seeing companies from US and from Canada, but more or less similar background, similar way of thinking, similar resources to manpower, and similar way of working as well. But entirely in a different part of the world, we happen to be in the real estate sector, and the relation which Eric has been able to build with me, not just me, my whole company, and him understanding the core problem in the organization has been remarkable, and that has only been possible through the communication. And that has, if I was not a member of an EU, I wouldn't have been this open. Andy is aware of that, and that for us is the first thing that really stands out. Second is that what Petra has been able to do for us is that, they've allowed us to look further, and look further up, and allowed us to that, hey, whatever you want to do in 5 years, let's see if you can do in 2 years. And that is the confidence that they've installed in my whole organization, and allowing us to be open, and allowing us to really accept that this is not enough, mediocrity is not enough, has been really the name of the game. Everyone talked about consistency, everyone talked about process, and one thing that I genuinely believe in, and through Eric, that is that most of the problem solving should exist where the problem is occurring. And if we as a leader cannot seem to identify that amongst our team members, which they know the solution to 80% of the times. And so one area where we are really generating a lot of value is the start stop key. And we have 600 members in the team, and I'm telling myself, if we are to be anywhere close to 2000 in 3 years, I have to figure out a mechanism where I'm doing that start stop key with my team once a year at least. And for the key members, it's every quarter. And for more key members, it's every month. And how can I do that? That is where the real, because most of the ideas for your problem and chasing your opportunities are really with your team. Thank you.
Hey man, thanks for being here. Good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. Now go to sleep. It's almost 2 o'clock in the morning. All right, I'm going to wrap the panel up. Really appreciate you guys being here. Bill, Ben, Jamie, Coco, great to see your faces. Great comments. I know the people on here appreciate you sharing a little bit of kind of your insight and your experience with them. These guys are also kind of a resource too. So if you have questions about something, they'll answer emails and be available if you have, hey, how did you do this kind of thing? And just go through us and we'll connect you as we go through it. So appreciative for you folks being here. We are almost at the top of the hour, which brings us to the summit of the Ascent. Taylor, do we have music teed up? Oh, look at that. All right.